Right, afternoon everyone. So today we are starting a new unit which is the second part of the homeostasis unit that we've looked at. So this unit we're going to look at the hormonal control of the body much more. So we're going to look about how hormones differ from the nervous system. We're going to look at where hormones are produced. We're going to look at some examples of different hormones. And about how they control the body and what happens when hormones go wrong. So that's a big overview of the unit. Today's lesson we're going to focus particularly on the endocrine system, and so what we're going to be doing is looking at the different glands that make up the endocrine system. We're going to look at the hormones that they produce. We're going to look about an overall definition of what the endocrine system is, what it does, and we're going to focus particularly on one gland within the endocrine system, which is called the pituitary gland, which is the master gland. And so we're going to want to understand that why it's the master gland. So our first question is, just to get us started and thinking about things here, is we've got three images here. Some of them are multiple images, but what we're looking for is, can you explain what's going on in each of these pictures? So just think about that for 5 seconds, or pause the video for a minute. Okay, so all of these are examples of what happens when your hormonal control, when your endocrine system stops working very well. And so this particularly links into the pituitary gland, which we've already mentioned is the master gland. But one of the things that it does is it controls growth. So in this image here, we can see that there is for want of a better term, a normal height man over here, and here is a giant man. So that's as a result of the fact that he has a tumour, a cancer on his pituitary gland, which leads to him to grow more than is normally expected. Over here we've got bulging eyes, and so those bulging eyes are as a result of an overactive thyroid, and so you can learn about thyroxine, which is produced by the thyroid. And down here we've got a person over time, so this is when they're a young person and as they're getting older, and they have something called acromegaly, and what happens there is that the bones continue to grow, particularly it becomes noticeable in kind of middle age, where you can see the fingers and the hand bones, and particularly the face bones, get much bigger and thicker. So here is a question for you to consider. So you can do a little brainstorm on this if you want, or you can think about mentally whether you can answer this question, which is, what is a hormone and what do hormones do? So pause. Right, so the first thing that we need to know about hormones are that they are chemical messengers. The second thing are that they help to coordinate systems, so they are involved with homeostatic responses to information. They travel in the blood, so they get produced by glands or secreted by glands of the endocrine system, so endocrine glands we call those, and they travel from where they are produced to where they have their action in the blood, and they will cause a change in how the body works. So again, this is all linked into our homeostasis bit from before. And so remember, homeostasis is about the maintenance of a constant internal environment. So they can do things like control growth, control our blood sugar levels, they control about when we go through puberty, and so the development of our secondary sexual characteristics. They affect our mood, and they also affect our metabolism, so how fast chemical reactions occur in our body. So next question then is, can you think of any examples? So pause, see how many you can come up with. So some examples would include insulin, glucagon. Both of those are involved in the control of blood sugar level. We'll talk about those in a bit more detail in a later PowerPoint. Insulin you've probably heard of, glucagon you may not have done. Testosterone, estrogen, and ADH. So ADH is antidiuretic hormone, that's involved in control of blood sugar level. Testosterone and estrogen are sex hormones in males and females. Human growth hormone, which you may know from Lionel Messi, who had some treatment with human growth hormone in order to, because he was deficient in it, and so it can be one of the causes of dwarfism. Progesterone and adrenaline are another couple, and we already mentioned thyroxine as well. So don't worry about writing anything down from this slide. We've got it across, though it does serve as a nice summary if you prefer a more visual representation of that. I'll post the PowerPoint on to show my homework, so that's available for you. Right, so key points. So this is a slide that you will need to copy down. Hormones are chemical messengers. They are produced by endocrine glands in the body, and so we can see some examples of them over here. So there's the hypothalamus and the pituitary, which we've mentioned, the thyroid, the pancreas, the adrenal glands, the ovary in females, and the testicles in males, or the testes. They travel in the blood from the endocrine gland to their target organ. So for example, insulin travels from the pancreas to the liver and to your muscles, and because they travel in the blood, it means that their action is slower because they take time to travel to where they're going, but also that because they are in the blood, they hang around for a bit longer, and so their action is longer lasting. So make sure you've written this down. Right, so a little bit of an overview of the endocrine system. Don't need to write any of this bit down. The next part I'll be looking for. So the endocrine system is about homeostatic control of our body. It enables our body to respond to changes in both the internal and the external environment in order to maintain constant internal conditions. If it doesn't work properly, as we saw in those starter images, then it will prevent your conditions from being regulated effectively, and so it can lead to disorders and diseases as a consequence. So a classic example of this one, which some of you may well be aware of, is diabetes, which is about your body either not producing enough insulin or about your body no longer responding to the production of insulin. And so we'll talk about that in a later lesson. So this is, I'd like you to make notes on this section. So pause the video once we've gone through the slide and make sure that you've got these. So the endocrine system is composed of a number of glands. These are the ones that you specifically need to know about, and you need to know about the hormones that they produce and what the role of those hormones is. So we've got the pituitary gland, the pancreas, the thyroid, the adrenal gland, the ovaries, and the testes. Now, as we've said, endocrine glands secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream, and those hormones will then travel in the blood to their target organ where it's going to produce an effect, and that effect will be both slower, so it takes longer for the effect to come about, but it's going to last longer. So make notes on that, please. Now, the endocrine glands we've mentioned, you need to be able to locate on a diagram. So we can see initially this bow tie shaped gland in the neck is the thyroid gland, and that produces the hormone thyroxine, which regulates your metabolism. We've got the pancreas down here, which you might recognize from your digestive system section right back at the start of the GCSE course, and that produces two hormones, one called insulin, which you probably know about, and the other one called glucagon, which we'll be learning about. Down here in males, we have the testes, which produce testosterone, and up here, just underneath the brain, there's a little P-shaped gland, which is the pituitary gland. Now, that produces lots of different hormones, and we're going to come to why it's the master gland, but it produces two key hormones that you need to know about, which is follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, which controls the development of egg cells in the ovaries, and luteinizing hormone, which controls ovulation in females. Moving down, on top of the kidneys, we have the adrenal glands, which does what it says on the tin. They produce adrenaline, and we'll be learning about how adrenaline is involved in the fight and flight response. And then finally, in females, we have the ovaries, which produce the sex hormones estrogen and progesterone, which are involved in controlling the menstrual cycle. So the pituitary gland is called the master gland because it is found in the brain, first of all, and so we can see it represented in this image here. It's this yellow bit underneath the base of the brain. Here's the front of the brain, here's the back of the brain. We can tell by the eyes on the front of the head there. And it secretes lots and lots of different hormones, which is one of the reasons that it's a master gland. But the major reason is the fact that some of these hormones that are released actually cause or act on other endocrine glands and cause other hormones to be released. So they're controlling the action of other endocrine glands, so they're in overall control. So for example, FSH, which we mentioned, follicle stimulating hormone, will travel from the brain in the blood to the ovaries, and there it causes the ovaries to make estrogen. Right, you need to make notes on this side, please, so pause the video. Right, to give you a bit more of a feeling about why we talk about the pituitary gland being the master gland, this gives you a bit more of a feeling. So the pituitary gland produces ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which controls water levels in our body. It produces this hormone called oxytocin, which is involved with pregnancy and causing labor contractions. It produces FSH and LH, which we've mentioned, which act on the testes and the ovaries and are involved with controlling the production of other hormones. It stimulates the thyroid, it produces growth hormone, it produces this ACTH hormone, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, which leads to the production of adrenaline, and it produces this hormone called prolactin, which causes lactation in females. So we can see that it produces some hormones which act on other endocrine glands, but then it also directly produces some hormones as well, which are able to control some other ones. You don't need to know too much about that directly, but this just gives you an overview of why the gland is the master gland. Right, little review exercise for you now. So look down this list and see whether you think they are hormonal or endocrine system or the nervous system for each of these statements. So communication is by chemicals called hormones, fairly obviously it's the endocrine system. Effect is temporary and reversible, would be nervous. Transmission is in the blood to all parts of the body, only target organs respond, would be endocrine. Slow, endocrine. Slow and long-lasting response, endocrine. Fast and short-lived response, therefore, must be nervous. Permanent and irreversible, endocrine. Communication by nerve impulses is the nervous system. Transmission is by neurons and travels to specific parts of the body, would be nervous. Fast, nervous. Widespread, endocrine. And localized would be nervous. Right, we have a multiple choice quiz to have a look at now. So I'll work through this. I'll also post a PowerPoint so you can have a go at this yourself. So, where do endocrine glands secrete hormones? So pause, think about that. You should of course be getting C directly into the blood. Which endocrine gland is found only in males? It's of course the testes. Where is the pituitary gland located? That is of course the base of the brain. Why is the pituitary gland referred to as the master gland? So this one would of course be B, secretes hormones that stimulate the activity of other endocrine glands. Which of these sentences about hormones is not true? So that would be C. Hormones carry messages faster than the nervous system. They are, of course, slower. And which of these functions is not regulated by the endocrine system? That would be taste, of course. Okay, as I say, I'll post a PowerPoint so that you can have a go at that yourself as well. Right, on to tasks now. So I've posted a copy of the booklet. You need to be able to identify the endocrine gland in each of the images, and then next to it I'd like you to put down the function, as in the hormone that is produced by each of them. So you can check that using the slide in the PowerPoint. Right, then there is this table to complete within your booklet, or you can simply write out the table. So stimulates development of the ovarian follicle, would of course be the pituitary. Controls blood glucose levels is the pancreas. Rate of growth and development is the thyroid. Stimulates the growth of long bones would be the thyroid. Stimulates absorption of water from the kidney tubule would be the pituitary. Prepares the body for fight or flight would be the adrenal. Affect glucose, protein and fat metabolism would be the adrenal. The glucose sends you down the wrong route, potentially. You might have been thinking about pancreas there. Prepares the body for emergency situations would of course be the adrenal glands as well. And produces a hormone called insulin would be the pancreas. Right, this table, have a go at. So insulin is of course produced by the pancreas, progesterone is the ovaries, estrogen is also the ovaries, adrenaline is the adrenal, antidiuretic is the pituitary, testosterone is the testes, and thyroxine is the thyroid gland. Right, have a look at this table. You need to colour code it in the booklet, or you can do it nervous, or you can do it just use the letters N and E, up to you, or copy out the table, whichever way. So we'll run through the endocrine system first of all. So hormones is of course endocrine. Only target organs respond, endocrine. Long and low lasting response, endocrine. Permanent irreversible effects, endocrine. Slow transmission, endocrine. Widespread response, endocrine. Nerve impulses is of course nervous. Fast is nervous. Neurons in specific parts of the body would be nervous. Fast and short-lived, nervous. Localized response is nervous. Temporary and reversible effect is also nervous. Then there's this gap fill to have a go at. So hormones are chemical messengers. Hormones are made by endocrine glands. Hormones travel in the blood to get to the target organs. A place where a hormone has its action is called a target organ. Hormones act much more slowly and last for longer than nervous responses. The response is also more widespread around the body, and the master gland that produces hormones that make other glands produce hormones is called the pituitary gland. Okay, I will see you for your live lesson tomorrow. Okay, have a good day. I hope this has been useful. Send me any questions that you need.